me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Welcome everybody to this week's member roundtable. I'm super excited for this week. Thank you so much for everybody coming today. Basically in this session, we're going to be broadcasting to YouTube. So anybody who missed it and wanted to come, you guys can definitely watch the replay. And even for you guys in the audience, if there's any part that you want to go back to that you need the sort of information again, this is just a way so things don't really get lost in terms of information. So today we're going to be covering these strategies to help you guys build and launch a successful SaaS startup. So this is basically getting you from ground zero to scaling. We're going to be diving deep into the strategies, and I'm super excited because our lineup today for our speakers is on point. So with that being said, I'm going to start us off and I'm going to go the general route. So what I want to know from you guys is, what would you say the key elements are that make up a successful SaaS startup?
As far as actually, creating and building out, like you were saying, there's so much that goes into it, and it's not just something you can snap your fingers and do. There's a lot that has to go into that. And a lot of it comes down to really researching, understanding your strategy, your go-to customers, the audiences you're trying to reach, and then building out a team that's going to actually be able to execute on the strategy that you create to reach that audience with the product you're trying to create to, provide that value for them. And for me, a lot of that comes down to, like I said, the research part of that, of really trying to understand what you're trying to accomplish, who you're trying to accomplish it for, and, understanding those people more than anything else, really.
Is an objective measure as to whether you can actually see if you've got this right. If you can go to someone who's in your ideal customer profile, as in when you build those out and you know who it is you're actually going towards, if you can speak to one of them on a one-to-one basis and say, hey, I'm building a product that's going to do this, and these features, and they're like, wow, yes, that would be amazing. You're onto something. It's really that simple. Speak to the people that you've created the product for, and then if they are amazed and really excited by the product, and they're like, okay, give me the link, you're onto something. If they don't quite get it, then you're probably not there, and it's really that simple.
I think starting SaaS is always starting with a problem. You can't have a idea based, right? Oh, I have this idea, you're going to use ChatGPT to do something. That's not how you started. I mean, if you want to really be in SaaS, really what is the problem people having, and whether software can really solve their problem. And then next questions, are they willing to pay you to do this? And then, once they're willing to pay you, he's like, hey, is there any existing solutions? So a lot of time when there are existing solutions, why are you coming to me, right? Because sometimes because it's cheaper, sometimes because you're friends, but that's not enough for you to scale. Best example is I've been working AI for 14 years, and I sell you email addresses to people who visit your website. And everybody asks for a lot of stuff. Even Joe asked me, hey, I wonder who these people are. But then again, it's a lot of you're looking for B2B professional emails. You can't send B2B stuff into their B2C emails. And if you want to do that, there's a Clearbit, right? Because then initially we were literally trying to go to Clearbit or Leafeater to get you the B2B emails. But then again, why am I doing this when you can just go to them yourself, right? Because at a certain scale, you're going to get rid of me and go to them. And then you don't want to be competing with. So the problem's kind of already solved. It's just that you're not willing to pay the price. And then when the user is not willing to pay the price, you're like, dude, you're getting, so you're not really getting paid because somebody else is getting the chunk. They're selling the exact same thing for much more than what they're selling you. Figure out the problem and then figure out what the money is.
I think something important that we all kind of touched on was that it starts with the people. It's the people over the product. It starts with the people and their problem, and then you kind of build off of that to create the solution. You don't start with the solution because you don't know if that's actually going to land right. You can pivot with the solution, but it really has to come back to that problem that people actually have.
So with one of my clients, just touching on that again, coming down to the people, they actually met on basically this networking summit where they had loads of tech people, absolute tech experts, CTOs, essentially, top coders who also understand business. And they paired them all up with top experts in fields such as psychology, different sciences, and that sort of thing. And when you combine someone who's really good at tech and someone that really understands the field and already knows the problems because they're experiencing the problems, that's where the magic really happens. And I believe in that 100%. If you're a really tech person, you should find someone who's an absolute bona fide expert in the field and ask them, what are you struggling with right now? And try and think about how you can apply your tech knowledge to identify those solutions and then, make something that'll actually fix it.
An interesting point on that is that a lot of people then create solutions for themselves. I forget, like eating your own dog food or whatever the terminology is for it. And that's exactly that. You don't need a subject matter expert. When you are the subject matter expert, you can solve your own problems. But, it helps in that way that you can really easily get into the shoes of your consumer because you are that person, So an alternative to Kristen's method of, finding someone who's really, really ingrained in an industry like that is, solve your own problems, look for your own stuff that pops up. That kind of thing.
If I may, though, to take the complete counter of that, I truly believe that, especially in SaaS, most industries are disrupted by outsiders. And if you look at automotive, like Elon kind of changed it out, and he had no background in that space. Really, and I think it's like two sides to this in the sense that when you go into SaaS, you're either technical or you're not. And if you're not, you're going to have to rely on others. And if you're not, you're going to have to be a little more cautious because you can't just exchange your time. You're going to have to hire developers to build the tool, and you're going to have to do a lot of testing. So I think it definitely goes a lot stronger on the validation side when you're a marketer, which we can get into that as well. But I've seen a lot of the people that I know that are successful from their SaaS companies and several exits, they've actually built it first as a side project, just because they were just curious, they were interested. They ended up getting a couple people that bid on it and asked for feature updates, and then they just started listening to their early users and then built accordingly. I mean, one of my really close people that launched a SaaS, they did it because they were in a group chat with their friends trying to solve some problems, did a one-time fee to actually use the product. And next thing you know, I'll never forget the conversation. It was like, I'm concerned. Next week, I'm switching to a subscription model. I don't know how it's going to work out. And once he switched, it was over 100 signups for subscription in the same day for the same price that it was a one-time fee. So,
one of the things I'd say on that as well is if you're a really techie person, chances are the problems you're coming up against a lot of the time will be problems other tech people are coming up against. And so it's almost like a competition where if I try to do SEO and I'm trying to rank for SEO key terms, everyone who is ranking for that knows SEO. So it's almost like it's the hardest industry to work with. And it kind of has a similar principle. If you go outside of the tech world to find the problems, I think sometimes that might be a little bit easier just because it's less saturated. But it's still a good point. You can absolutely build by fixing your own problems for sure. I just think the competition might be a little bit higher.
There is a book called The Mom Test. Always go through that because the internal bias is a very strong thing. That's the thing that you have to fight against. You're like, hey, and then sometimes you cannot differentiate for sake of differentiating. That's when you're doing SaaS. Because like, hey, our competitor is doing this, but we're doing this thing a little different. But 99 out of 100 times, the different stuff you do, it doesn't really matter at all, right? But if it drives from your your customers, especially they pay you already. So at least it de-risk you for two things. De-risk because I think every customer churn. Well, we'll discuss that later. I think at least somebody's willing to pay for this feature, and then second of all, you already got paid, so it's less risky. Even if they decide this feature is not good, at least nothing's guaranteed, but that pushes it to risk you a little bit.
Can I comment on the mom test real quick? Because I've had a ton of failed SaaS. I've failed a lot in SaaS. My first one was pre-Tinder, automate your date, which was exactly what you think it was. Complete failure. Another one, which was what did I wear, which was supposed to be an outfit tracking app, so you wouldn't duplicate your outfits, and then you could actually see who saw you in those days. So maybe you could reuse the same outfit. But I remember saying to my friend's mom, actually, she's like, "Oh, what are you guys up to? You guys are always just sitting on the computers." I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing this thing called What Did I Wear?" And she goes, "What's that?" I explained it, and she goes, "You're asking the wrong question." And complete just as if it was facts. And she goes, "It's not what did I wear, it's how do I look?" And it was so profound that I was like, wow, this has been in front of me the entire time. I was too close to see it. But nevertheless, a mom actually completely made me pivot in another direction. So
that's ironic. The mom test.
Boomer mom. The boomer mom.
That's so
Giving tech
funny. So
advice.
then, did you pivot into the what? How do I look? Is that the next step there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was kind of like a fashion. Basically, you post your outfits, and the more upvotes you got on your outfits, the stronger your voting would be. And then you could see global trends and see what outfits were popping and geolocation. Unfortunately, I ran out of money. I was self-funding the entire thing, and I already pulled some like friends and family money. And I was just like, I need every time was like, oh, you need to put like a filter so that they could detect things that aren't supposed to be uploaded for the app store and keep it private. It was just a bunch of nonsense. So I ran out of money, and that one ended up dying.
It's hard to, at least from my side, I imagine it would be hard to like work out the budget for some things that you just can't foresee. You know, I think that happens in every business. We do actually have oh yeah.
In SaaS, whatever you come in with your budget, just go in at least 5x and 10x, especially if you're non-technical and you have to hire out. Especially now, I'm building a SaaS behind the scenes, and I think we're 3 times above budget what we expected before getting to the MVP. So it's just never what you expect when, as a non-technical founder in SaaS, it's definitely a struggle.
Even as a technical founder, what I was going to say before was even just I wouldn't even say just in SaaS, but it sounds like SaaS is like 5 times as much. Everything takes longer than you think and costs more than you think, and that should just be a baseline for anything you do entrepreneurially. Just it's always going to take a little longer. It's always going to cost a little more, but that's just part of the journey, I feel like.
We do actually have a question from our audience. We have a question from Kyle. I have an associate that believes you need the audience before you can launch any service. Do you agree with this approach?
No, completely. No, I feel like from a marketing standpoint, if you know who your audience is that you want to be targeting, you build the product, the audience will come no matter what you do, if it's that good. And we've seen that with so many SaaS companies. I think like SurveyMonkey is one that stands out to me. Their entire growth was almost just done by having this built by SurveyMonkey at the bottom, and that exploded them. I feel like, yeah, if you have a good product, and this is coming from a performance marketer, so ironic, but if you have a good product, it's almost like the audience will come regardless. You don't need an audience first.
Yeah, the field of dreams, build it and you will come. I mean, look, you could have no audience, you could have a fantastic product, and then you could have a successful, product hunt launch that puts you on the map, right?
I want to add a few words on this. Just counter.
Definitely more convenience to have an audience.
You don't need a community. No, you don't. But you need beta testers. You need people who will be there with you before you go live. Because the biggest problem with SaaS, unlike clothing, people don't have patience for your shit. So if they download your app, either SaaS once wasn't comfortable, customer experience wasn't there, features doesn't work, you lost them. It's not going to be trial and error, It's not like somebody shopping vitamins and you can wait for a month to see something working. No, it's not. SaaS, if it's not working for me now, I'm out. So you want to have that group of testers and people that will work with you, especially in the first phases, just to get the product, what we call matured enough to go to market.
And that's not hard, right? You can literally just post on Reddit, for example, in a subreddit which is familiar, and you're going to get, if your product's that good, you'll get everyone in that Reddit, and everyone will be talking about it. It'll get a ton of upvotes, and that's it. Like, it just takes off.
I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. There's a difference between like launching it into a community and building it in an echo chamber. But you should have people you're working with, and people of that ICP, like we're talking about, your target market, that you're building it with. But you don't necessarily need this massive community to launch into. I think Web3's made people kind of feel like you need that because that's how it was, is, build a community and then build the product from that. But I don't think it's necessary.
Totally agree with Jordan, because the issue with kind of Facebook and Google was really an anomaly, and then that they sort of created this entire trend of like, we just need the users, we need the community before we're building, before we even make a single penny. But in reality of things, dude, I went through that entire whole shebang too. It's like you get wish-washed, and then the thing is, just understand, Facebook broke Harvard, and the Google broke Stanford's entire service system. So if you don't have a system that can break you can't even break your own school. It's like there's so much demand on whatever you're building, and this is from real people. Like whatever that you build, like you're like, oh, this stuff is not possible. I mean, OpenAI, we're literally breaking OpenAI left and right. The ChatGPT. You always think about yourself. You're selling cocaine. You're not selling you're not selling a product nobody wants. And then people you gotta have if you were to able to sell cocaine, you can literally sell that on the street like in gone. That's where the demand is. And you're like, software cannot be as much as cocaine. I'm like, dude, ChatGPT is much more addictive than cocaine. So you can just see that software level is it has more demand than the most addictive drugs.
I think that's one of the
hilarious.
best comparisons I've ever heard.
Fucking crying.
Sounds code.
I don't mean you. I mean, but I'm just saying, as an entrepreneur, as a business, right? There's obvious legally. I mean, if you sell illegal drugs, you're gonna get arrested. I mean, that's the counterpart. But the thing you have to think yourself as selling a product as an entrepreneur, not as like a software developer that come up with this idea. That's like it's like I have this great idea. That's a fantasy.
One thing that popped into my mind as you were saying that, and it comes from Facebook and Google, is that sometimes when a business is built on network effects or its success is hinged to these network effects, like the more sizable it is, the better value you get from it. That might be a little bit of a difference, and that you do need to start building up that community of, or at least have a plan to grab those initial people, because early on it's not, you need those people to provide value with your product. Things like Facebook. If you're the only person on Facebook, it's not that fun. You need all your friends to be on Facebook for it to be good. How do you get all of that group on there in the first place?
It's also quite hard to build a community if you have nothing to build it around as well. Like if everyone's using the app, if everyone's using Pokemon Go, for example, everyone's on Pokemon Go, it's very easy. There's lots to talk about. If you try building a Pokemon Go community before it exists, like it's going to be harder.
I think there's another topic we should really discuss in SaaS is like you have to avoid the herd. That's the other thing. Just remember when it's like when the mobile wave hits that everybody was building mobile, and then it's Web3, and now the wave is ChatGPT. There's literally 100 startups I see every single day. There's a different version of ChatGPT, and the only person that's making money is Sam Altman.
Oh, but
So
the
you have
fact that
to
enables builders on ChatGPT.
I know, but the thing is, everybody's building startup that's not making money. They're basically and a lot of them get funded, so they're really using investors' money and then piping it directly back into the credits that they use for Sam Altman, because you have to offer for free. Whatever you can build, other people can build too.
I think that takes us on to our next question. This is from Eric. What are your guys' take on no-code solutions becoming popular these days? Do they help builders or hurt them?
I mean, it's no code. It just literally levels a playing field. I don't need to have the same technical experience as Jordan, you, or Peter, and I can build drag and drop builders. It's like, what do you like better? Do you like building a website in JavaScript, or do you like using Shopify? And majority of websites right now are on Shopify. So it's just no code solutions are great. They're only going to get better, and especially with AI. I mean, you've seen things like Galileo, where you can text to Figma UX, and then now they have no code builders where you can drop code into your Figma that will then code it into like an app. Let's say, I think no code is serious, and it's between that and ChatGPT, I think the skill gap on the sense of on developers and software engineers is going to shrink. Because you don't even need to be that crazy good and technical when you have ChatGPT feeding you information. You barely even need to code. Yeah, Chris?
But then is that good for the builders or is that good for the end user? Because increased competition, if you level it, if I can suddenly make a SaaS and at the same level as a really good developer, all of a sudden that developer has me as the competition, and he can't charge as much because I'm offering the same price and undercutting him.
That's what he's saying.
Right. I thought
I'm sorry. You think competition is good or bad?
I think
competition is always good.
It's good for the end user. It's bad for the people trying to make the money.
Good for everybody. The second Furlough gets competitors, we have a chip on it. Now we need to go deliver because someone's coming for our cake.
So here's the part I really start finding out. Because I used to use, because the thing is, as a coder, right, as a developer, you get bored of the boring stuff, like this entire grunt stuff. The layer, the business logic, the data access. This is the stupid stuff that once you master that, you never want to go back. This is the stuff you hire other people to do. Like I literally, this is the stuff I literally hire Fivers. I don't even give my staff those types of stuff. I tell my staff to go to Fiverr and then Upwork to find people to get that done, because it's just the business logic. It's just annoying, right? In terms of like, there's no challenge building and there's no pride building that type of stuff, and it wastes a lot of time. You have to spend so much time in this. And what I find the ChatGPT does is really good is basically doing this grunt work. And once you have the grunt work start piping in, it makes the average programmer much better. But the thing is, a person who does not know code still would not understand what ChatGPT is actually doing for them. I still would highly recommend people actually learning technical skills, because only these are tools. Is like Adobe Photoshop cannot make me an artist, but it makes artists like much better. It gives them the weapons and tools to make their work much more presentable.
But to me, you're stating the next era of SaaS, because what is SaaS? Is service as a service as a software, right? If I can
Software as a service.
Exactly, if I can empower founders, people who are not technical, create better solutions, providing them with best and better no-code solutions. What is the next wave? This is the next wave. Because fact is that Shopify dominated the e-commerce space without being the best platform, but by being the easiest platform. So again, I think it's just like no-code, 100% the next level of developers, like in 20 years, the developers will know how to communicate with a platform that will code. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to learn coding anymore. They're going to learn architecture and high-level stuff. I think the development is going to be done exclusively by platforms.
So Ophir, let me give you another counter argument on this. Shopify have created more coding jobs than the previous entire e-commerce e-com as an industry previously.
No, I get that, but Shopify as a solution, it came exactly in the soft market. Like if I could do my custom website, my Bento website, my Odoo website, or my WooCommerce website, Shopify came and told me, you don't need a developer, bro. And this is the next wave of SaaS. They're going to empower building SaaS without coding. I'm 100% sure about it because it just opens to them a bigger market. Why would I learn how to develop if I can go pay a SaaS, $500 a month, develop whatever I want? The market is so big, so obviously somebody's going to unlock it.
I think a big difference here is doing things that have been done before or easy to accomplish with these kinds of tools, like creating their e-commerce website or a landing page. Sure, it absolutely evens the playing field on those things and allows people to move quickly to create these things. But that's the exact point. There's now no moat in that. You need to then differentiate on your concept, on your execution, on all these other things that go into it that can differentiate you and that aren't just that base level of technology. That also being said, these no-code tools can't do what they can't do. Like to Peter's point, someone who, if the tool's built out to allow you to build, drag this, drop here, that's great. But then what happens when you need to, do something that doesn't allow you to? That also being said, the engineers that are using these tools to then, as the tools they are to improve their own productivity and build these next step things that aren't, going to be easy, they're not the one to many, they're the 0 to 1, right? If you read Thiel's book, it's the things that are not already set up for you that make the difference there. But I think it's a good thing overall. I just do think it kills the moat, right? I think I was talking with one of my co-founders about this recently, because there's like Calendly, and Calendly is charging whatever for, per month. And I've been hit with ads now with companies that are copying Calendly and saying, here's a one-time fee, you can use it forever, and we build Calendly for you. It's like, sure, they just even the moat, but they just killed Calendly's margins. I'm going to use that instead, right? That's what's going to happen. We're going to have a lot of companies that are building out these like single-use tools, and it throttles margins. And investors aren't going to invest in that because there's 5 of them, and you could probably make it yourself by telling ChatGPT and Galileo to go build it for you, and it's going to come back and create that. But that next level of technology is not going to be possible just yet, or it is by the people who know how to combine the tools. To Peter's point of using what you have available to you to create something new by engineering, these different pieces together.
And there's also the stuff that the tech just can't do. Like, I know you said that, John, but building on that, sort of like the reason I really like Calendly, and I don't know if this is possible with other tools, but it connects with like 5 different emailing services. And then, if you're creating a SaaS, you should look at what you can code. Brilliant. Yeah, but what else can you connect that with that other companies that are coming up won't have those connections? So if I know, let's say I'm using an SEO tool and I speak to Google and I say, could we have a connection into Google Search Console and we'll pull your data? And that's kind of like, that's the USP. So I think trying to develop your product in ways that isn't just purely code, but it's also connecting with other tools and other services. That's not easy. That's not as easy to copy, and you can't tell ChatGPT to do that unless it's a public API.
It's getting easier, that's for sure, though.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, because at some point you'll be like, "Hey, I need a cup that's shaped like a owl," and then a cup shaped like owl, and you're like, oh, "I want that one," and then the 3D printing will actually print it out for you. I mean, it's kind of funny in a way, which I have yet to see a single developer complain about ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is like make our job so much more easier, right? And then we were like, but yet artists always complaining the entire Stable Diffusion is like it is completely like infringing on their stuff. This is where you can see that where the open and the closed mind is. If you're open minded as I do, this stuff you use the tools in their best advantage, right? When you have photography, people thought the entire camera was going to kill the entire art industry, and photography become its own. This is where the new tool that's come out. There's a pivotal technology which can change the entire industry. So if the best artists will be able to figure out how to utilize that the best, and it's just like the best programmers will figure out how to utilize the ChatGPT the best.
So I do want to know from the audience, do you guys think that ChatGPT is going to kill the art industry? Do you think it's bad? Definitely drop a comment. I have my own opinion on it. I'm not going to share it because I don't want to put bias in the audience, but I would love to know.
It's just point. Let's be very clear. ChatGPT is not going to kill any industry. It's just going to evolve the industries and force them to adapt. All right, like it's not going to just simply say, "Hey, we're replacing all vehicles and driving." It's like, yeah, but there's still the automotive needs to sell the vehicles to these people, these autonomous vehicles, right? So, I think that a lot of people are going to be eliminated in the sense that they aren't going to know how to adapt. And they can evolve with these tools, and the skill gap's just going to be clear as ever.
I would say as well, I think there's a tipping point where SaaS and ChatGPT is a really good example where artists might love Photoshop and they might go, okay, we can now use Photoshop and we've learned how to use a tool and that makes us a lot better. But if ChatGPT etc. starts doing the actual art for them, that's when I think there's a tipping point into something becoming a tool. And then into becoming where it takes away all the skill, because the skill element is now being a part of what's actually being used. And so like autonomous driving, if you've got Tesla and it might avoid you using crashes, it might even drive up and down the highway, and that's great. But at some point the car's not going to need a driver at all anymore. There's a tipping point where the tech gets so good you now don't need the human. And I do think that it's almost like it's a really good thing until it just completely destroys the need for human intervention. And at which point, I think something similar could happen to SaaS, where, developers love ChatGPT. It makes their life easier until all of a sudden we've got Auto GPT, which you type in the SaaS platform you want, you make it really detailed, and then it just creates the entire thing. And now you don't need a dev at all. So I do think there will be a tipping point.
Chris. So on your counterpoint, the person who can really get that spec out is another developer. If you want to build out an entire SaaS platform, like, hey, I want this to be this, and that have to be another developer, or at least trained to be a developer. So again, that's you're empowering. It's like I need this SaaS that basically takes the image, every day takes the image and then basically pump into and then go to a nutrition database and to see what am I missing in my nutrition based on the image, based on like and my Fitbit or my Apple Watch's data, and then pump and then basically give me the dashboard every single day when I wake up. I'm just thinking I'm giving the spec, but as soon as I'm able to pinpoint that detail. That usually means I can already build it. It's just I don't want to build it. It's just like it's and also Brainy is like this tiny little thing. How do I connect to this API? Spend 5 hours figuring that out. Now ChatGPT is basically doing those grunt work, dirty work, and then get this stuff out for me.
So,
but for a normal person to do that, very difficult. Very difficult.
I know. Maybe the reason I disagree is I feel like I could describe the program that I want to a really, really good bot and they build it without any coding knowledge at all because I don't know how to code.
Yeah, because you are a programmer.
I'm not.
Have you? Yeah, I like your mom will never think like certain way. Like my mom, our moms will never think the way how the programmer is being built in because programming is all about exceptions.
Yeah, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not a programmer though, but I do think. Yeah, I do take your point. It's not going to be like an easy thing, but I do think there'll be people that aren't devs that can describe something that a bot could create it, and that I wouldn't class them as developers. Just personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a developer. I could
just
build
want-
something with ChatGPT, just to point that out, because I could communicate to ChatGPT and tell it, build me this. I have no experience. Give me step by step, and it will do so.
Yeah.
You just got to be very attentive, and
And auto
Then
GPT is almost
you
doing that
develop
without
then.
human.
auto GPT.
Is that
kinda
not a
sucks.
developer? It speaks to what Ophir was saying about,
no.
you'll go to the architect side or what I think I saw someone in the chat say about, the value of ideas. It speaks to what I was saying before is when you level the rest of the playing field, it comes down to idea, execution, and, marketing. A lot of it, it's, it levels the rest of the playing fields.
I want to add on this just a few things. First of all, how long ChatGPT is available for us?
Yeah,
5 months? 5 months? Think 10 years forward.
yeah, that's
Okay?
what I was in my
Like,
head
you
exactly.
can't even
Saying.
imagine what this shit can do. That's one. Second, how long you have developers in the world? 30 years? 40 years? How long do you have people trying to make money from shit? 5 million years. So the people that try to make money from whatever, this will remain and the business will adjust to support them. Period. Like it always gonna be like that because they are the drivers of the market. Now, on the other side of things, I just think that SaaS, like when you look at it in the future, because it's going to be easier and easier over time to develop SaaS. And I think rather than going to mass distribution and getting thousands and hundreds of thousands of users, SaaS will be used for like advantage, competitive advantage internally. You'll see companies develop their own SaaS so they'll be able to compete better, but not to distribute it. This is where I think it's going to go because
Sorry, just to agree with you. Yes, so fair, it's happening, and on top of that, like that's pretty much their strategy. I know a lot of agencies that build internal tools, and then once they have proven model, like this works, this is impacting our business, let's package it up and let's make it more of a direct to consumer side where that you could just offer it to them. So Fear is 100% right.
So I guess what Afia is saying though is that if you could create that and then distribute it, and you do distribute it, all the other agencies will just put in ChatGPT in 10 years' time, okay, create a clone of this. So actually it's a competitive advantage to keep it in the business and not distribute it so people can't make a clone, but then you have the service.
Yeah, but Chris, if you can, how many agency owners are closing down their shops to go all in on SaaS?
I feel this thing that building a SaaS is like way easier with no code because the tech that I use, like you guys were talking that if the ML thing and the no code and the backend that you guys were talking that we cannot do the backend basically with no code. There is this tool called Zono that provides whatever the endpoints that you are looking for, all the things, and for the CRM, the Airtable, and for email marketing, every tool is there to support the no code file. It has been almost like 2 years, I guess, to by doing and building the no codes tool, like social media automations, image to tech thing, and right now, in fact, I'm building a tool. Don't want to share right now, but the tool is like the front end is gone entirely on no code. So pretty much.
I think also we have to differentiate between, validating and getting an idea and getting out to market and really scaling something. I think no code's great for that first part. You can get something out, you can get, but these things break at large scale. Honestly, there's things that you're not gonna be able to do.
No, it doesn't.
I promise you, it does.
Bro,
I was doing research on this.
No, it does not, because you need to, the tech that you are using, you need to know more about it in order to make any decision, like with the code even. So if we make any decision, we need to know what is going on with that tech. So for example, with Zeno, basically, the tagline is that they got 5 million funding just to prove that no code can get scaled basically. So that thing, and another thing is like to tie up all the things that you are making. Okay, like using Zono, Airtable, and all these different no code. You need to have the best platform, and which is like Airtable, or which is make.com or any Zapier thing.
I do love a bit of good debate. That always makes a session.
I am a no code developer here. I know what I'm going to say.
Also, welcome
saying-
to the stage as well, Himanshu. Really great to have you up. I saw you sneak in there. I did actually Sorry, I did want to actually just highlight a really good comment that was in the chat. Like, we just can't skip this. So this is from the Artificial Dinosaur. I just think this is a solid point. I graduated in computer science, so I know quite a bit about AI. The thing about ChatGPT is that it makes advanced programmers even better and bad programmers even worse. You have to have a certain knowledge such that you can ask the right questions yet see the shortcomings of it. It's like asking a second opinion, but you still have to know what the actual impact of the output is. ChatGPT still contains many flaws, but often gives me an alternative solution to a problem I haven't thought of, even if it's not fully correct.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, but I would also highlight what Afia said earlier, which is what I was saying too. It's been out 5 months. Try in 10 years, and then let's see if that still holds true. I bet it doesn't. So I don't think we're thinking long term enough about that. But yeah, absolutely. At the moment, that's 100% true.
So
Before few days,
if you actually
Joe was teaching us. Like before for few days, Joe was teaching us how to, do prompt engineering basically without using any plugin. So that is the point. Like to ask if you can, ask the right question to ChatGPT, it will answer the right question. So that base is the foundation has to be clear. Thanks, Joe, for that day, man.
I think there's
Glad to
another.
help.
So this is topics about SaaS. I think there's another thing we always missed is even for ChatGPT itself. Like you only look at a person after their success. 2 weeks ago was at the entire Stripe session conference where Sam Altman was basically that was the final talk with the Stripe's founder, and it's kind of really interesting. It took them about like almost 8-9 years to get to here too. And what they weren't building ChatGPT, they were basically just building AI that can do just about anything. How does AI even fit into this world? Because you can't. As a startup, you don't have enough money to drive like self-driving cars. Everyone who claims are pretty much just scamming investors, and then or try to sell piece of the company to like larger company, which eventually get folded down by GM or something. And then they finally got something through was that they were able to use AI to play Dota, right? And at the time, which Google's DeepMind was able to use the AI to play Go. None of these are just all pretty. It's more almost like an R&D shop created by funded by Microsoft, like almost like a NASA in sort, because they didn't know what the hell they were building. They're just like, hey, let's just use AI to do something. And then eventually ChatGPT is the one that hit. So there are cases, and then Sam Altman, when he was the president, that he was the successor for Paul Graham. I'm not sure if you guys know. This is like OG. Like these are like OG stuff. Like when he was created, he always tell people like, hey, if you in modern days, if you don't have a social, if you're not on mobile, if you don't have a way of intrinsically have a K factor value in your built within your product, you're almost your likelihood for succeed is very, very low. And then he's like, when he saw ChatGPT was able to do this, he's like, wow, it doesn't have any of those factors. It doesn't have any social factors. It does not share. It doesn't pump. It doesn't really ask people please like and subscribe. It doesn't ask for any of this stuff yet because of the simple utility. And this is where the product market fit hits. As a SaaS, that's for every single SaaS. This is kind of what you're trying to do: is hit your product market fit. Find your product market fit where your customer come to you for something. And then from the initial stage to that's like once you can break product. I mean, like our current product, we're good enough to have people demanding this stuff, but I don't think it's, again, product market fit is one that basically really takes off. This is a difference between $1 million company and a $1 billion company.
I do have a question for you, Pierre. Are you able to drop some strategies on actually like how to price your SaaS product?
You see how you try to charge as much as you can. Initially, the most mistakes is charging really low, but then again, is like you have to kind of test the market, right? Because in the initial couple of customers, at some point that you have to hit the margin because you have to pay yourself. You're like, dude, it's not worth it, because a lot of customers do. We generally don't serve startups anymore. It's just because they're cheap and I mean, I'm a startup myself. Don't get me wrong. You gotta hustle. You gotta do what you hustle. But the thing is, when you're serving, you gotta serve a mature market. That's your because you're there to disrupt the market. So and then they have money. So when they have money, you have to figure out what if the pain is there. They're willing to pay anything.
I want to say something here
Mhm.
about the thing. So what I believe is, so I think that whatever the product that you are building right now, somebody already built that particular thing, okay, and they have did the entire research. to structure the pricing, the cost, and everything. So what you do is you go use any kind of platform to document all the things. Figure out that how much it is going to cost you, how much you should take from the user, so that you can make a good percentage on it. Make that particular list and talk with your entire team, basically, that this is what we have, and in the plan how much you can increase by 6 months or 1 year, basically. So you plan like that, and you just go and take their research and use it. In design we love to steal things.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you one way not to figure out your pricing is asking. A perfect example is ChatGPT asked me how much would I pay for subscription, and I said $100. Dropped 20, and I waited. I was like, yeah, I don't really need it. I eventually folded, but if it came out for $100, I probably wouldn't do it. I think obviously a marketer's approach and just split testing offers, seeing what converts.
Yeah.
If you have money, it makes things a lot easier because you don't have to necessarily have traffic. You could acquire traffic, and said traffic would actually convert on the page, the offers that you're giving. So if you're doing $4.99 versus $10.99 versus $19.99, drive 1,000 people to each page, see which one converts the most, and you have an idea. That's just a marketer's approach. But you're gonna say something? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I
heard him.
mean, for me, pricing is critical. And what you said, I can't disagree with this more. Like, I cannot accept what you said. Charge the most, because there are CFOs in this world. There are people. No, I'm saying to Peter Ma. There are people who are looking at the reports. They say, "What the fuck is this number? Can you cut it?" So the moment your number is out of proportion to the value you're giving, you immediately become candidate to be cut. Okay, that's true in salary, that's true in SaaS, that's true in everything. So your price has to be reasonable. And by reasonable, this means that I'm co-paying it for the value I'm getting back. And it's hard. This is why there are people that actually has degrees in pricing and tiering it up and building pricing models and stuff like that. And the fact is, bro, the biggest challenge for a SaaS, in my eyes, is not the pricing point. It's getting a customer and a brand, especially on our business, is getting an enterprise to get used to using it. Because if I'm fucking used to your tool, if I'm used to Monday, and Monday sucks, okay? Monday sucks, but I have 200 employees on Monday. I have all my projects on Monday. You know what it means for me just to move from Monday to somewhere else? The costs are enormous. So I think it's more about locking someone in, because SaaS makes money on the longevity of the account, not on the conversion. If you have a client 5 years, then your customer value is fucking skyrocketing. I don't need to make content marketing to keep you. I need the customer service to be solid, and the product stays the same for everybody. So pricing is key, and this is why free trial periods, extended free features, having access to premium support, stuff like that are massive in SaaS, and I would never disregard them.
100%. I mean, Afia, it's getting really annoying. Every time you speak before me, you take my exact point to a T. But literally, almost exactly what I was going to say. I was going to give a few examples of every time this has worked on me. Is something comes out and it's quite cheap, and I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. And at the exact point, I'm like, I could not live without this tool anymore. The price triples, and I'm like, you know what? Fair play. Yeah, it was really cheap before. I mean, my invoicing software, for example, this is a really small example, but probably I have 2 software subscriptions myself at the moment. My invoicing software was $199, and I was like, why would I not buy it? It's $199, whatever, it'll make my life easy. And now they've just changed the pricing to $10 a month, 10x their revenue. And I was like, of course I'm going to pay $10, but at the very beginning, would I have paid $10? Probably not. I'd probably just use Word instead. So I 100% agree. If you should always, in my opinion, and even with marketing agencies and other non-SaaS, but just anything to do with a service, keep the price down, show your value, and then over time, just lift the price up and up. And as long as you're still providing more value than you make people pay, they're not going to leave, especially when you take into account what Afia said, when you have to migrate everything over. That's a massive time sink in itself. So 100% agree.
What about when it comes to, obviously, you can raise your price outright, but surely there's other things that you can do to raise the average order value from a customer, right? Is there any recommendations on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of marketing, obvious. Sorry, go on, Peter.
So there's also ways of a core service and upsell, right? Because upsell is usually just really you're selling on convenience, and that's kind of the thing too. But you generally if you can build a tool that basically like, hey, how would I price this? You basically you crawl all of your competitors' site and you come up with and then you go to ChatGPT to give you analysis. Hey, that's a startup. Hey, that I mean, I'm probably willing to
I'm
use
gonna
it.
build
I mean,
that. I'm gonna build that. That will take me like 1 hour to build that entire thing. This will.
yeah, and then you can start seeing how many people willing to use it and how many people willing to pay, right? And then you can keep track of like this is the stuff. How do you keep people using it? If I use it once, I can value them out, then you don't get recurring revenue.
That's true. So I think we've got less than 10 minutes left. Oh my gosh, this one went so fast. I think we'll have to have a follow-up on this call because I mean, I didn't, at least on my side, get through half of my questions. I would love to hear from you guys, like what would be like your top, and I hate to say the word hack, but I'm gonna use it. Like, what's your sort of top tip or top strategy for anybody who wants to launch a SaaS startup?
Yeah, I think mine would be.
Yeah, you got it.
Sorry. I was just about to say, make sure that you speak to your target audience, and yeah, it's what I said at the beginning. If they aren't wowed by the idea and they're not asking you to build it now, so they can give you the money as quick as possible, then go back to the drawing board.
If you've never done it before, and get those first failures out of the way. I think our boy Eric said it best: fail fast, fail hard. I mean, I've never met anyone that's knocked it out the park in their first SaaS, and if they did, I could say they're probably very lucky. But get those under your belts. You'll figure it out. I don't think the first idea is always the best one, but the iterations that come from that and the ideas that stem from it, you'll definitely find it. Go very lightweight for sure. Don't get caught up so much on like design and all that stuff. I mean, figure out what that main pure product is and who the people, ideal customer profiles, right? Who you're really servicing and helping. And if ideally you can do something that you would use every day and solve your own problems, I think that's also a pretty good solid point. You don't need to solve your own problems, but talking from personal experience, you get a lot more invested when you're actually building something that serves you.
Yeah, to all that point, I think that it all comes down to validation. Validate your idea. Like Chris was saying, you talk to your target market, get them to pay for it. I think Pierre said that earlier. That's the biggest step of anything is, get it out there as an MVP, validate that people are going to pay you for it. And, that's probably the number one thing I would say.
I would say that whenever you are validating the idea, you need to have like, for example, like validating how there at least there should be three different ways to validate one idea. First thing first, I would go and talk to the people whosoever is on LinkedIn, at least 3 or 4 people, and what they think about the product, and take notes. Based on that, I create a landing page, and after that, I basically go to Facebook groups or any kind of community that specialize in that particular field or related field, and like that I will be validating my idea. So pretty much.
I want to add one thing to this, and obviously getting out there, because SaaS developers always have the problem of having 2,000 features in their to-do list, and they're waiting until they go out. So go out, get some feedback, understand what's more important and what's not. Number one. Second, and this was my lesson, get a business model working, even if it's minimal, but get it from the launch. Because I got with a company to 200,000 users, no business model. This is the worst thing you can do. So get the business model right before the launch or really early, because you can't run a long time without a business model.
And if your beta or your alpha testing of the product has dark mode, you're focused on the wrong things.
Oh, I agree.
Right? Yeah, these are features. You don't need more features. You need to figure out the core value of the product.
You'd be surprised what tools are out there. Some SaaS boilerplates or the no-code stuff where I'm sure it's just a button you click. We're getting that point. So
Start documenting the things, like basically the overview, the finance, that like document whatever you are doing, man. That's it. With
One
my
thing
old SaaS, I
SOPs.
was failing.
Never put yourself on LinkedIn working or building a stealth startup unless you're changing the world of what you're building. Never. Like, show it out there. Don't be stealth. Like, whatever you're building in stealth,
build in public. Is that a shout out?
Got it.
Speaking of tomorrow, no, I'm just kidding.
Hey, plug it. We got it. Plug it while we
I don't know
got
all the
it.
details. I'll let you do.
Oh,
what's going on
tomorrow,
this
Build in
week.
Public Radio. We got wonderful Brett Lucarelli interviewing Sean Seedhu, which is the founder of a SaaS company, because it's a SaaS week at Furlough, for Slayer AI. And I believe he's gotten into a lot of other new projects and things that he's working on. He's been doing AI before it was on the big wave and big focus. So for sure, Brett and Sean, early days, we're doing Build in Public together. So there will be a lot of rapport there, and they have a lot of backstory. So it's going to be an exciting session tomorrow, same time, 2:00 at the Phi Arena, Eastern Standard Time.
By the
Thanks
way,
for that,
thank you
Gordon.
so much for inviting me. Thank you so much again, everyone. Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you. Did we, last but not least, did we hear from you, Peter, on your tip?
Huh? On my what?
On your strategy tip?
Strategy tip. It's really just I would say if you're gonna build a SaaS, don't build it out of a no code, because then your customer can literally just use no code themselves to build it, and then you have to think where your value add is, right? You have to figure out where because it's not like it's like if your SaaS is basically building a shop, building an online website for ecom, then your customer can literally just use Shopify to do that. Like you have to add value where your customer do not have. Such as figure out the tiny little problem they have. It's like Shopify doesn't offer that. It's like, let me build that on. Let me build a plugin on top of Shopify. That's why I said Shopify have created more programming jobs than the entire e-commerce combined. Before Shopify was invented.
I love it. That's crazy.
If I could add to what Peter, just because he's absolutely right, instead of building an alternative platform for Shopify, like build a Shopify app, right? Instead of building an alternative for Apple, build an app in the App Store. It's obviously going to cost way less, and you could use the platform's exposure. So I like that a lot.
That's Mr. Bezos. Send him a reminder.
Yeah, I mean, that also comes with the platform risk of attaching yourself to something like Shopify or Apple, and giving them percentages of everything you do. But there's trade-offs everywhere.
But you're a startup, so like especially for new entrepreneurs, if you don't have an ecosystem that's backing you, it is the world out there is you're a little fish in water with all the sharks.
So that's it's basically Dark Souls mode of SaaS startups. Then that's what you're saying.
Yeah, attach yourself to a bigger fish first, and then so how. If this is your first startup, if it's your second SaaS and third SaaS, you already have the network ecosystem built out. Then there's stuff that you can hammer out. But your first startup, if you don't have an ecosystem, it is very, very difficult to start. Right. So attach yourself to a Shopify, Apple, whatever, Salesforce. Like you should look at a big fish and be like, get to know the community, and then if this is something you want to do. It doesn't. You don't have to fit yourself. But if it's something you want to do, it's like I don't mind hanging out with a bunch of people dressing in suits, or I don't mind with a bunch of people dressing in hoodies. Or if you serve if you build a software that serves oil company, I don't mind dressing. Go to Saudi Arabia and hang out with a bunch of them, and then eat. It's a community you got to be comfortable to be around, and these are your customers. So you have to. You don't have to love them, but you have to like them. You have to like to be around in that environment.
It is easier to tell to people who you like. But thank you so much, everybody, from our amazing audience to our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much for coming along to this week's Member Roundtable. We will be back again next week. So next week, we are actually going to be discussing new customers versus retention. So basically like how to reel customers in and then actually how to retain them. So definitely stay tuned for that. That's happening next week, next Wednesday at 2 p.m. EST. And just before we go, I am going to drop the socials of our guest speakers in the chat. Feel free to give them a follow and support them. And yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah. Next week's theme. Oh, sorry, real quick, because we're on SaaS this week. Next week is e-commerce. All right, so hence the retention, the conversation that's going to be in the roundtable. But Rossin, great job. Everybody else, appreciate the value you guys dropped in the session.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ross.